Good morning, afternoon, and evening, ladies and gentlemen. So, I was sitting around. I was not really doing anything, and I was like, okay, well, you know what? Let's do a breakdown, because I haven't really done one of these in a long time, and I wanted to. My name is Zach, and Nolan Cardinal is over there.
Beside the camera.
Yeah. So, I went, and I did a lot of digging on Evander Kane, and my God, I was very surprised with what I came up with. So, let's start from the beginning, shall we? Evander Kane was born in 1991 in Vancouver, BC. He played for the Vancouver Giants in the WHL, where he recorded 138 points in 134 games. Very impressive. He actually would then go on to represent Team Canada in the World Juniors. They would win. Very nice. So, what happens? He's then drafted in 2009, 4th overall by the Atlanta Thrashers. Atlanta, obviously being the precursor to your Winnipeg Jets. So, what happens from there? He began playing in the 2009 to 2010 season, recording a total of 69 points in 138 games with the Atlanta Thrashers before relocation. In that time, he's getting paid the ELC, which is entry-level contract. Entry-level contracts can range from $750, and it actually went as high for him, in his case, $900,000. So the first 2 seasons, which was the only 2 seasons under the Atlanta moniker, he was getting paid $900,000. That is important to the story later on. Thrashers then relocate after 2 seasons of him being there. Now we get to the Winnipeg Saga. The Winnipeg Saga has aged very badly in Evander Kane's place. So, where do we even begin? Evander Kane would play for the Jets from the 2011-12 season to the 2014-15 season. In that time, he would register 96 points in 148 games. Now, there's a couple backgrounds here that we need to go over. First off, his number. He wore number 9 when playing for the Atlanta Thrashers. Number 9 was actually the number of a famous Jet of the original Jets 1.0, being Bobby Hull. Bobby Hull was actually, and now this is where it's very important here, Evander Kane actually spoke to the team and the organization and Bobby Hull himself and asked permission if he felt comfortable wearing his number. Bobby Hull said yes, the organization said that's okay, that's fine, and he elected to wear number 9. However, it is worth pointing out, now this is a very mature thing to do, worth pointing out, Brian Little, who was in a very similar situation being formerly number 10, the number of Dale Hawerchuk, he just elected to switch his number right away. He changed his number to number 18. They don't really talk about that as much. But yeah, it is worth noting. I'm not trying to undercut him here, but there was other avenues you could have taken. So on his first year in Winnipeg, he makes the last year of his ELC, $900,000. So then he resigns for 6 years at $5.25 million. That is a steep increase from what he was formerly making. And this is kind of where his lifestyle changes. Now, I'm not saying it's because of this pay raise, but I'm saying there is correlation here. What happens next? Well, on June 4th, 2012, he is charged for texting and driving, which is a very serious event in Manitoba. It's not worldwide law. Certain places you're allowed to do it. In Manitoba, you are not, however, and that was actually kind of the time they were cracking down on that. So his fine was $250. However, it went unpaid. He did not pay it. And so on his license, it would then be put on hold. So his license was put on hold by the police and charged a $40 extra, which, that's kind of like pouring a bottle of water in a pool, but the fact that he put his entire license on hold was a little important. Now, fast forward to October 18th of 2012, and Kane was actually pulled over and given a $311 fine for driving without a valid license. And then he claimed afterwards that he thought the tickets were paid. So what does that tell me? That means that he needs somebody to manage a certain amount of his money. So it would end up being like a total of around $650, like they show. But anyway, so we'll move on from that, his driving offenses. His situation in Winnipeg does not get better. Now, it is worth noting that when they publicized this story on him, there was actually a couple outlets that claimed the Jets were trying to run him out of town. And they actually used fair comparisons. For example, Zach Bogosian got a speeding ticket, didn't get talked about as much. Andrew Ladd got in trouble for parking in a handicap spot. Dick move, Andrew. But it didn't get talked about as much. And I understand that idea, because if we really compare it to parallels of more recent events, a lot of departures from the Jets. However, the one that really sticks out was the idea that Patrick Laine possibly left because of problems with the team. Now, there's only one really outlet that was covering that, so it was really tough to gauge the trueness of those statements. However, the difference here is that Patrick Laine does not go on to have a track record of bad behavior. The only thing that he ever gets in trouble with is having an altercation with an assistant coach based on creative differences based on on-ice play. Evander Kane does not get that luxury. So, move on. April 3rd, 2014, Kane is accused of assault after an incident in Vancouver. He was later sued for financial damages. Now, a lot of what you're going to hear, and it needs to be said, a lot of these things that I mention are not going to have proper endings. And that is the nature of these things. And I, for all intents and purposes, and I need to say this now so I cannot get sued, I'm not saying he's guilty of these things. I'm saying they were alleged, and they come up, and they show up, and if you Google it, they will pop up. And we have the clippings to talk about it. Because some of these instances, they kind of just go away. I'll let you be the judge on that one. Now, it is worth noting in this instance, Kane does admit to throwing 3 punches. However, he does claim it was self-defense. And the person who sued him didn't really give a lot of logic in what the events happened. However, they just listed a slew of injuries that occurred from it. And honestly, if the 3 punches is true, that does not add up. Unless these were like brass knuckles, that does not add up. But it is worth noting that afterwards, on April 5th, 2 days later, Kane was a healthy scratch under new head coach Paul Maurice. Yup, he's been around that long. Yup. In a game against the Leafs, after the game, Maurice said it was a coach's decision and that if Kane wanted back in the lineup, all he needed to do was probably just come to the rink. So that shows a disconnect right there with the franchise and the player. It would not get better. We all know this, but let's keep going. December 2nd, 2014, Evander Kane takes a lot of photos with stacks of cash. This is where money phone! Yes. So, this is a little immature. Now, he claims a lot of this was just for fun, and I believe that. However, I also do believe that he didn't really know what to do with it, so he just thought, I'll take a photo with it. And based on what we know now, okay.
That aged badly.
It aged about as well as milk. So, moving on. On February 3rd, 2015, he was a healthy scratch against the Canucks. It was later determined that he was scratched because of an incident with his teammates. This spawns the immortal photo of Dustin Byfuglien and Evander Kane. I'm going to keep this photo up here for the remainder of the time that we are talking about him as a Winnipeg Jet because I just love looking at it from time to time. It is what is deemed the tracksuit incident. So, and this will actually kind of add into the story of what I was saying before about teams having own team policies. The Jets team policy was, you wear a suit, you are a professional, you show up to meetings, you wear in a suit. Okay? We can go back and forth on whether or not that is a little bit too much, but it is the expectation that this team had, and everybody knew it. He showed up in a tracksuit, which reportedly pissed off a lot of people, and allegedly, I have to say allegedly, even though it's like 99% true, but it's alleged, Dustin Byfuglien went and threw his clothes in the shower. And Blake Wheeler was totally okay with this. And in reports about said incident, Evander Kane claimed the Jets did not have his back. And pretty much Wheeler and Byfuglien summed it up as saying they will handle it internally. which sounds a little bit of a boys' club, but you know, again, you did know the rules. Like, you've been on the team now for like 4 years. Okay, all right, that's fine. Tug on Superman's cape, that's cool. So, upon said things, he is then eventually traded to Buffalo in still the most monumental trade that the Winnipeg Jets franchise has made, arguably, even in comparison to the Patrick Laine deal, because as you can see here, there's a boatload of things that get moved around. And that gets us to pretty much chapter 3 of this story, Evander Kane in Buffalo. So Evander Kane goes to Buffalo, and he plays in Buffalo from 2015 to 2018. He played on the Sabres from the 2015-16 season to the trade deadline of 17 and 18. He amasses 118 points in 196 games. Now, this is where there gets some problems. So, first off, there's an alleged incident in 2015 with no charges made in a sexual offense investigation. No charges made. Moving on. Now, on July 1st, 2016, Kane was sued by a 21-year-old woman who accused him of assaulting her in the hotel where he lived. According to court documents, the woman alleged that Kane met her in a bar, invited her to what he said was a party, and then attacked her, causing cuts and bleeding that required multiple surgeries. This is all alleged. I need to state this, but at the same time, clippings you saw, so you can check those out as well. Then make of it what you will. On August 1st, 2016, Kane pleaded not guilty to 1 count of criminal trespassing and 4 counts of non-criminal harassment after confrontations with 4 separate people at a downtown Buffalo bar in June 2016. So, Kane became involved in a fight with a bouncer at a bar called Bottoms Up after allegedly grabbing an unnamed woman by the throat and attempting to force her into a car outside the nightclub. A second police report alleged that in a separate incident, Kane grabbed a woman by the arms inside the nightclub and attempted to force her outside. Kane surrendered to Buffalo police in late July 2016. That is a whole lot of yikes, and a lot of it is alleged. But here's the thing that I will say. I'm not going to put myself in either way because I do not know all the facts, and it has been very well documented that not everyone knows all the facts in this, but it is out there. The fact that this keeps showing up now at a now increasingly speedily pace is a problem. He's being put in situations that are not good for who he is. That is all I will say, and I think that's a safe assessment. Now, he then gets in trouble for going to the NBA All-Star Game instead of the Sabres practice, which, you know, knowing what we know about the Sabres, I can't say I blame him, and was promptly suspended for a game. Then he's benched near the end of the 2018 season due to declining performances, and he's traded to the San Jose Sharks for a package deal and what would eventually become Michael Frolik and Brandon Montour. The Sabres, with all of these things, completely screwed the pooch in hindsight because we know now that Brandon Montour gets traded away for less than a first-round pick. So there we go. Now we're on to chapter 4 here. San Jose Sharks, 2017 to present. This is where a lot of things are a lot better and well known because it's so fresh in people's mind and kind of comes together as a full story. So, he played on the Sharks from 2017-18 trade deadline to present day. In that time so far, he has amassed 166 points in 212 games and actually has 13 points in 29 playoff games because he hadn't made the playoffs with any team before the San Jose Sharks. Now, it's worth noting, though, at the beginning of the 2018-19 season, he actually signed a contract. He signed a contract with the San Jose Sharks. He was making around what we said $5 million before. He's now making $7 million for 7 years. And again, we will see what happens with this. He led the league then. He would then go on to lead the league in penalty minutes. Now, this is kind of where it impacts his in-game performance a lot more. He leads the league in penalty minutes in 2018-19 with 153 penalty minutes and 2019-20 with 122 penalty minutes. His penalty statistics for advanced analytics are abysmal. We'll get to those, but it's not good. And this is where we see more problems on the ice. On April 26, 2018, Kane receives his first ever suspension, I believe. A one-game suspension for cross-checking Vegas forward Pierre-Edouard Bellemare during Game 1 of the Western Conference semifinals. Now, he would argue this, but, like, don't cross-check a guy in the head. That's all I have to say on that, honestly. I think that's a pretty solid rule. He would then go on to receive his second suspension a couple years later, during the 2019-20 preseason. Kane was suspended for the first 3 games of the regular season due to abuse of officials. Now, that sounds a lot worse than it is, but it is still worth noting it's not great. It really doesn't look good. What ends up happening is it was seen as an accidental slash that actually clips a part of the official as well. He meant to slash, ironically, I think Derek Engeland, which would then put him against the Vegas Golden Knights again, which is just a lot of problems against Vegas, and would be well documented in his rivalry with Ryan Reeves for a time. But he goes slash, kind of clips a bit of lines, but then after an eventual fight breaks out, and he will shove the linesman, which immediately gets him a game misconduct, and then suspended for 3 games. And you can't shove a linesman. You just can't. The linesmen are off limits. In any sport, you cannot touch the referee like that. It's just a no policy. There's no ifs, ands about it. So, then we see a problem here. Kane gets sued on November 4th, 2019 by the Cosmopolitan Casino in Las Vegas after he walked out on a $500,000 gambling debt. So the suit alleged that Kane had received $500,000 in markers. So what are markers? Markers are what happens, for example, if you're gambling at a casino and you run out of money, you bust out of money. And, for example, we'll say they give low value markers. This is just a very, very dumbed down version. And say, well, do you want to keep playing? The casino will find you and ask you if you want to keep playing. Because the casino sees that you are not good. And they know that they will suck some more money. They'll be like, okay, well, how about we give you, we'll spot you $50 is pretty much what they're saying. So they'll give you $50 and they expect you to pay it back. So then, now what you need to do is win, first off, keep the $50 that you have from them and win on top of that. Spoiler alert, it does not always work out that way. And for Kane, apparently, it really didn't because he had $500,000 left behind. And they went really in tight. They went in ranging from value of $20,000 to $100,000 on separate installments of his time playing there. And worth noting, for about a 2-year stint, the Vegas Golden Knights and the San Jose Sharks would meet each other in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So this is a very real possibility that, like, this happened. And extensively, I'm willing to somewhat believe it because we will find out certain things later about Kane in a couple minutes. So, he left a bunch on the thing, sought full restitution plus repayment of legal fees associated with the lawsuit. So, yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Now, in February 14th, in a game against the Jets, he gets suspended for 3 games on a elbowing call against Neil Pionk. And he argues this, but, like, look at it. You're behind him, and the elbow connects the back of the head. For context, even in UFC, you can't hit someone in the back of the head. Come on. So, don't worry, I promise we're getting near the end here. So, moving on from that, there's a little saga with the Pauls. Jake Paul and Logan Paul. Oh boy, do I love talking about this. So, pretty much, this was kind of in the still phase that we're living in of one of them. They're pretty much just calling out celebrity boxers and then making a lot of money off it because people just, it's kind of like the, like, my dad is better than your dad argument, but, like, in real life. It literally is. It's like, because, and it's such a genius model by the Pauls, literally. Make yourself punchable, and then book a fight with somebody because people want to see you get punched and then just make profit? So Evander Kane answered this, and he said he would mop the floor with both of them. And then, not too long after, it came out on January 11, 2021, that Kane reportedly filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in California after amassing a $27 million debt. How the hell did we get here? How did we get from a guy spending $300 on a license that he forgot to pay to a $500,000 gambling debt to a $27 million debt? Mistakes were made. So then, this leads us to today's news. In July 2021, his estranged wife, in an Instagram post, publicly accused her husband of betting on games involving his own team and of throwing games with bookies to win money. And also, she also alleges that he left for Europe when the house was being foreclosed by the bank, which is just a bit of a dick move. Now, this is kind of what we'll get to right now, actually. Do I think that he was betting on games? Because, first off, I've said a lot of disparaging things about him. I haven't. I've just been recounting literally the list of problems that he's had, alleged or not. What do I think? I think there is a fair statement for the correlation between his payments and his problems. Because he doesn't have any problems in the WHL. He doesn't have any problems in Atlanta even. He doesn't even have many problems in Winnipeg until he gets the payment of the $5 million pay raise. Now, I don't want to make this sound like a thing like money changes people. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that certain people don't necessarily have the right mentality when faced with such a pay raise. And I'm not saying I would do any better. I'm just saying that we have proof of people who handled their money well because we don't need to talk about them. And then we have this. So make of that what you will. But I think it's fair to say that his situation gets a lot worse the more money he was paid. And I'm not saying it would get better if he was paid less. I'm just saying that this hole gets dug and it doesn't get undug. It doesn't get covered up. Apparently now there's reports that several teammates would like him thrown off the San Jose Sharks, which means that his probably next bet for playing would have to be in Russia. Worth noting, though, he's actually played in Russia before during the lockout. He played about 13 games, and they said it was a mutual agreement that he didn't fit with the style of play. That's not a good sign. Considering that's like the parachute for most players that have a lot of their credibility kind of wrecked. But it's tough to say. I don't think it's a fair statement for me to just say, is he a good person or a bad person? I think it's a person that doesn't really have a very good outlook with his finances, and I think that led to a lot of bad decisions, and I think with some of the allegements that I've said are very bad, and I don't want to just kind of wash over that by saying a blanket statement. But do I think he was betting on his own games or throwing games? Yes and no. I think that he was betting against his team, but I don't think that he was throwing them on purpose. And I'll explain why, and I think it's very simple. For one, we now know that he has a problem with betting, because I do believe this allegement with the Cosmopolitan. I don't think they have any reason to just single him out if it's not just him. Because plenty of the Sharks were staying in there during that, but they only singled out him. And in comparison, I think that the Sharks being a bottom-feeding team right now, I think that works pretty advantageous for him. Because he doesn't even, if we look now, let's look at his analytics. He doesn't really get much weaker. Like, yes, it's slight decreases, but ironically, his defensive game has gotten slightly better, where his forward game has dropped as well. But to be fair, that's the entire San Jose team. Like, look at the 18-19. That San Jose team made it to the playoffs, to the Western Conference Final against St. Louis. So, And then afterwards, they have a steep decline because San Jose is not good right now. I think though, but it works to his advantage. So he can just bet on the game. He doesn't even need to throw it. He can just bet against them because he knows that that team is not expected to win a lot of games. Now, we're still waiting for some of the reports, and maybe I'll revisit this in the future, but honestly, guys, I want to hear your thoughts on this. If you find something online as well to add that maybe I missed, please comment it down below. I will happily accept it. Honestly, I did a lot of digging for this, but honestly, I just want to hear the feedback here because it seems like nobody really, like, this is not, like, people think that this is something recent. No, this is something that has been cultivated through his entire career.
For
and
almost
it's built,
10 years.
Yeah, it's built to this point. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I know it was a little different than what we normally do, but I wanted to kind of talk about this and kind of break it down through the seasons, honestly. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel. Thank you so much for getting to the end of this. I know it's not an easy watch, always. But I do appreciate it nonetheless. Don't forget to leave a like on this video. Subscribe as well, of course, yeah, what I could just said. And comment down below your thoughts on this entire issue. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.